Silver moon glittered for Anasterian's victory. Banners catching torchlight as if the city itself breathed. Windrunners dressed for it. Full-length silk for the daughters. Alleria in green with an attached cloak that moved like a second shadow. Verisa in red with an embroidered bodice that caught every lamp flare. Sylvanans in blue and sleeveless by request. If she could not wear armor, at least she could shed the needless fabric. Lirath had gone ahead, and Vareth was going to meet them when the carriage arrived. The rest came with Larissa. Wheels whispering over stone, music already rising from the estates ahead. In the carriage's warm hush, Verisa glanced up. "Is something wrong, Mother?" "No, my sweet girl," came gently, and the tenderness in the words jarred Sylvanans with an old memory. Her mother's arms wrapped around a giggling Lirath, years before duty hardened her voice. Larissa let the quiet sit, then sighed. "But I am a little sad. All of you are adults now, even you, even Lirath. I still see you in my mind's eye as children, but you are such no longer." Verisa slid close, linking her arm and resting her head on silk. "That may be, but we are still here. We're not leaving you." Across from them, Alleria turned to the window. Sylvanans caught her sister's profile in the reflection. Set, unreadable, and said nothing. The celebration spilled across avenues of columns and gardens, a tide of perfume and polished shoes. Lirath, Larissa promised, would join them soon. First, the rounds. Their parents led the way as Sylvanans, Alleria, and Verisa followed, shaking hands with the Magi in their cluster. Grand Magister Belovir of Selenar, flanked by Romoth and Darkon Drathir. Lorthamar liked Darkon, but Sylvanas's nape prickled under his gaze. She did not like how he looked at her, eyes glowing, perfect features in shadow beneath the sweeping brim of his hat. It was one thing to be found attractive, it was another to be regarded as a meal to be devoured. Romoth's chill courtesy she could endure. It was almost a relief by comparison. Somewhere nearby, the court artist performed. She hoped to greet them later. Most knew her chiefly as Lirath's sister, which she found unexpectedly charming. For now, the current carried her past hopeful suitors and bright-eyed ladies angling for favor. Then into the tide of cousins upon cousins, every strain of Windrunner kin. Of all the faces beside the artist, only Priestess Liadrin warmed her, though even Liadrin's gentleness could rasp when Sylvanas's patience wore thin. Then, a hazard she would gladly have avoided, Lord Saltharil. She intercepted him with a sweet smile. "My lord." He turned with a pleasant mask that slipped to something utterly genuinely annoyed when he saw her. "How pleasant to see you here," said Sylvanans. He dipped the barest nod and tried to pass. "Your pardon." She stepped half a pace with him. "Still throwing your famous parties?" She finished her wine. "I do hope so. We wouldn't know, of course, as Lirath hasn't been performing at them for some time, and the rest of us have been extremely busy with court matters." A smooth voice arrived behind her, silk over steel. "And yet, somehow I have not encountered you. You have grown quite a bit since I last saw you, Lady Sylvanans." Saltharil colored, bowing low. "Your Highness." Sylvanans made to withdraw. "Back to Verisa and my father," she began, but Kael'thas detained her with a glance. They drew a small orbit of quiet amid the crowd. "Your parents are truly remarkable individuals. While everyone knows about the Battle of the Seven Arrows, of course, few are as aware of the good your father has done the kingdom. Battling trolls is assuredly more noticeable than battling other politicians," she answered, smoothing the irritation from her tone at yet another mention of Larissa's legend. "Ah, but sometimes the battles in comfortable chambers over delicacies and beverages turn out to be the more important and long-lasting. Quel'Thalas is very blessed indeed to have both of your parents, and they have borne equally remarkable children. I am grateful to be able to borrow your brother as often as I have. He is quite popular at court. Our family appreciates your patronage. Lirath is very good at what he does." "Your father tells me you are a budding diplomat." She laughed, honest and unguarded. "My father, I fear, lives in hope. I am not diplomatic at all." "You may yet flower into statecraft. I would imagine it requires skills similar to hunting, timing, preparation, patience." Her smile sharpened despite herself. "Laying traps? Killing cleanly? Skinning?" She held the beat. His discomfort tugged at the corners of his mouth. "You are a most unusual woman, even for a Windrunner," he said gamely. "I will take that as a compliment, Your Highness, but I really must be getting back." She curtsied and turned, straight into a swell of people pressing closer to their prince. A jostle, a shift of weight, the cup tipped. Red fanned across crimson silk. "Your Highness, I'm so sorry." The apology leapt out first. The quip that followed came out faster than her brain could process. "At least it matches the color of your robe." A startled chuckle from the prince. The crowd followed suit, laughter ringing lightly off stone. She edged away, but Saltharill's voice rose over the mirth. "Oh, my prince, how clumsy that Windrunner girl is. I swear, Lord Vareth just lets his children run around like wild beasts." Heat crawled up her neck. Time to vanish. She cut through the dancers in search of family and paused. Farisa and Vareth were already on the floor, moving with easy grace. Sylvanans' mouth softened. The two true diplomats of the family, both white-haired and kind-eyed. She would have left them, but the glint of Farstrider pins drew her toward familiar company. Lorthamar's voice met her halfway. "I could not help but hear the latest gossip. I discounted utterly." "Oh, do tell," she said wry. "It seems that the nobles will be gathered for a royal wedding soon. None other than the union of two great houses will do for the gossips. It seems our prince has set his sights on Lady Sylvanans Windrunner." "What?" burst out of her before sense returned. Lower. "That's ridiculous." "I don't know. Queen Sylvanans has a nice ring to it," Lorthamar deadpanned. "And we know how much you love formal events, meaningless chit-chat and—" someone began. "Please," Sylvanans groaned. Then the words spilled faster than wisdom. "He is nice enough, I suppose, and he has certainly been very good to our family, especially Lirath. I'll always be grateful for that, but I cannot think of a worse fate than being married to a prince. Leave my forest for stilted conversation over punch? Become an accessory worn on the royal arm rather than pinned to the royal chest? Completely change who I am? Dress in gaudy formal robes to match his? Be paraded out to perform like a trained animal at stupid parties like—" Silence gathered behind her. She didn't need to turn to feel the paleness in her companions' faces. Oh no. "Fortunately for the both of us, Lady Sylvanans, I pay little attention to gossip. Rest assured, I cannot imagine this fantastical event either. Since you are clearly not having a pleasant time at this stupid party, please do feel free to excuse yourself. You've done quite enough for the crown this evening." Her cheeks burned. She dipped a curtsy and angled for the exit, but a gentle hand caught her sleeve. The prince's voice, low enough for her alone. "Had I asked for your hand, the last thing I would wish would be to change who you are." Then he was gone, swallowed by the crowd. She stood a heartbeat longer, the room's sweetness gone flat on her tongue. Friends wearing the awkward sympathy that stings worse than scorn. It was not the prince she disdained, truth be told. She barely knew him. It was the court's falseness, the performances, the pressure, the pretty lies. There was nothing to say that would untie the knot. She found her breath, dipped her head. "Excuse me." And she left. By the time she reached the spire, the music and lilac of the celebration had burned off like mist. Sylvanans stripped out of silk and into herself again. Tunic, shirt, leather, weight she trusted. Twilight found her on the range with Cyndia and Leanna. Arrows whispering through the cool air, fletching brushing her cheek in a rhythm that steadied the day. She stayed until the targets were only pale moons and her shoulders hummed, then turned for home. Lirath was waiting. Pacing in the front of the spire, back and forth across the stones, she called to him. He looked up, and something in his face made her break into a run. "What is wrong, my little lord son?" she asked. His eyes narrowed. "Don't. Not right now." Confusion pulled at her. What had happened? He laughed, and even his anger had music in it. "Of course, you have always been so focused on yourself, on your needs and wants and whims. You don't even know, do you? If I did, I wouldn't be asking." Are you angry that I left?" "Oh no! By the time you flounced off, I was glad to see you go." The cruelty landed like a blow. She reeled and then steadied. "Why would you say that?" You can't be this obtuse. You're supposed to be the clever one. Heat rose. Is this what you're learning at the palace? How to insult and hurt people? He closed the distance in 2 strides. That right there. If I wanted to study insults and how to hurt someone, I'd come to you, because that is exactly what you did today. You stood there, a guest of the royal family, needling the heir of the throne of Quel'Thalas, insulting him behind his back, and then kiting off to whatever adventure you had waiting while leaving the rest of us to pick up the pieces. How do you think that reflects on the family? On me. His voice cracked on the last word. Beneath the edge, she heard the hurt. Little lord, she began. I said don't. I'm not little anymore, Sylvanans, so stop treating me like I'm a child. Well, you're certainly behaving like a child throwing a tantrum. He flinched. His Highness has been nothing but good to the Windrunners, and especially to me. And he forgave you for your unspeakably reckless little stunt at Saltharil's party. Or have you forgotten that? The truth stung. She remembered exactly who had lessened her punishment that night. She had insulted and hurt someone, and because he was right, and because she was in the wrong, she despised it. She doubled down. I was trying to protect you, Sylvanans said, frustration spiking. Protect me? Lirath scoffed. If Erevan and Rendris had been truly set on ruining me, your prank would have made them double their attacks, not cease them. I don't need protecting, Sylvanans. I can fight my own battles. Blood thundered in her ears. She drew a breath to answer. Enough! They turned. Verisa stood there in her elegant gown, hair combed and jeweled yet somehow askew, fists clenched, cheeks wet. Stop it, both of you! Silence fell, the kind you don't break. I can't keep this up. Father is always away. Mother and Alleria can barely be in the same room with each other without shouting, and now 2 of you are fighting? What is wrong with you? Don't you remember when everything was different? When we used to go to our spot and laugh and dance and play games and... Shame flushed Sylvanas's face, hotter than any anger tonight. Lirath stared at the stones, hair curtaining his expression. She knew he felt it too. They stepped in together and held their sister. Verisa leaned into Sylvanans, sobbed, then drew back and wiped her cheeks. I am sorry. Don't be, Lirath said at once, his tone gentled. Lirath is right. We're sorry. You have every right to be angry at us. Verisa steadied herself, voice still frayed. I don't even care who's right anymore. I just want all this to stop. It will. Eventually. Things will come to a head. She snorted through a damp laugh. That is my Sylvanans. She always has a comforting word. It will happen as it will. Nothing stays the same, Verisa. Especially if we want it to. The truth of it surfaced like a dark fish in still water. Things were changing, whether they wished it or not. Lirath was right on many accounts. He was no longer little. She was a fully fledged adult and member of the Farstriders. Verisa would be inducted soon. They all had destinies, directions. But were these the paths they wanted? It certainly seemed Alleria did not want her charted course. Verisa appeared content enough when her family wasn't squabbling, but maybe she was tired with always being saddled with peacekeeping. And as for herself, Sylvanans was still trying to figure that out. Sylvanans asked Lirath to talk one more time before they turned in for the night, but Verisa was ready to head in. So she kissed them both goodnight and threatened over her shoulder, If you argue again, I'm going to pour a bucket of water on you both. That won a weak laugh from all 3, and then she was gone. Well? He said cautiously. Sylvanans let the night air fill her, salt from the sea, sap from the Eversong trees. She tipped her head toward the path that ran down to the beach. They walked until the ocean's pulse smoothed the edges inside her. Words found their shape in the rhythm of the waves. I'm sorry. I was rude to Quel'Thalas and he didn't deserve it. It wasn't him I was angry with. It was what he represented. What I'm being told to be or not be. Sometimes I'm afraid I've gone too far down a path to turn back. Father wants one thing, Mother doesn't care, and I want something else entirely. But I don't know what. She kept her eyes on the water. I do not know where I'm supposed to be, Lirath. A diplomat? I understand strategy and politics, but I don't like them, and I don't have the patience. When I'm with the Farstriders, I feel free, but not challenged. I don't feel like I'm being asked to grow, and I should be. I should always strive to be something more, something better. She risked a glance. The frown was gone. He listened. I don't know what's going to happen with Alleria and Mother. Verisa is worn thin trying to keep the peace among us all. The only one of us besides Father who is stable, where they should be, is you. You have this gift, and you are able to pursue it, and well, everybody loves you. Her smile flickered through the sadness. Me most of all. And you know exactly what you want to do, and exactly where you want to be. His face clouded. He looked out over the moonlit water. That is not true at all. What? She almost gasped. Everything she had assumed to be true about the world centered on the fact that Lirath, at least her beloved little lord son, was going to be safe and loved, even if everyone and everything around him spun out of control. He shifted, uncertain. I love performing and music, and I do feel happy when I can sing and entertain people. Do you remember our conversation after the disaster at Saltharil's? It was a disaster, and I do. I had thought you had forgotten about that, Sylvanas said. How could I possibly forget when nearly everyone in my family is a Farstrider? He replied. He spoke softly, calmly, sorrow under the quiet. Father's work is important to the kingdom as well. I just dance and sing pretty songs. Sylvanas almost wept at the self-contempt in his voice. She took his hands in both of hers, remembering how she had been galvanized at once by the little bundle with pink cheeks and blue eyes. She thought of tiny fingers reaching out, grasping a lock of her hair, wondering at the newness of the world. Saw in her mind's eye those same hands, fingertips bloody from practicing, from a determination to excel. She lifted her gaze to his. We both honor life, little brother. I'm trying to protect people so you can help them find joy. I may keep them alive, but you give them reasons to live. And knowing that gives me a reason to stay strong, because I'm fighting for something. He pulled her into a fierce embrace, words muffled against her shoulders, saying that they had never fought like that and he hated it. She hated it too, and held on as if an embrace could be armor. When he was an infant, his cries had torn at her. Now, any hurt did. That hadn't changed. Let me be the one at the edge of danger, the one in the woods, the one with the sweat and blood and stenches and pain. Let him be the one safe beside the fire, where the only concern is which song to sing, Sylvanas thought. They stepped apart with the same small, tired smile. The tide breathed in, breathed out. It was late. Together they turned back toward the spire and headed home. Dawn came thin and cold, the kind that clears the mind better than sleep. Sylvanas slipped out before the sun breached the horizon, the spire still hushed behind her. Silk had no place in morning like this. She moved through the gold-leafed boughs in leather and linen, springing from branch to branch, light as the red squirrels, testing each perch before the next leap. She set leaves for marks, knotted bark for centers, and sent shafts whispering through the air. Arrow, breathe, release, again. For an hour and more until her shoulders warmed and the old rhythm steadied what the night had shaken. She returned to voices cutting the quiet. I will not do it! The words rang through the hall like a snapped bowstring. Sylvanas eased closer along the corridor's edge. You do not dare to refuse this, Alleria. It is a solemn duty and I will not allow it. Alleria's reply came lower, measured, trying to cool the air. I will take my company and go. And then, still calm, only a few of us. You will have veterans. I don't want to command a kingdom's military. I simply want to contribute, to do something that helps people other than us, Mother. We are not the center of the world, and if we do not soon realize that, we will stagnate. I don't want to step into footprints made by others hundreds of years ago. I want to make my own path, my own destiny, Alleria pleaded. Larissa's breath sharpened. This is a terrible mistake. But it will be at least mine to make. You've never let me have a choice in anything. I have been nothing to you but an heir to a title. Even my name comes from your mother. I have never been me. The barbs were not new, but today they found bone. Silent, stretched, taut as wire. I don't belong. Alleria's voice went cold with resolve. My soul feels trapped, Mother. I am not running away from what you taught me. I will remember everything, and I'll use it to help people just like you do. I will just be helping different people." Larissa sounded stricken. "You would turn away from us?" "I'm not turning away from anything." The tone was one Sylvanans knew from their father, steady, unmovable. "I am running toward something, and I hope one day you will see that." Larissa did not. To her, this was desertion dressed as destiny. She reached, grasping for another tack, comparison, hierarchy. Alleria answered like an arrow loosed. "Sylvanans was already as good as I am years ago. Better maybe than I ever will be." Sylvanans froze halfway to her door. Praise had never been Alleria's dialect with her. Larissa didn't deny the skill, she dismissed the fit. "It does not matter if she is the better shot. Sylvanans does not have the temperament for leadership. She is not dedicated enough. She has had countless opportunities to gain allies at court, and she had squandered every one of them through foolishness and mischief." Alleria's answer came sharp and sure. "Now you grasp at straws. She has Haldoran and Lorthamar on her side. Many of the Farstriders appreciate her distaste for formalities and pretense, and I cannot think of a single challenge Sylvanans has faced but not met. Let her turn her mind to leadership, and you will see her exceed your expectations. She is the Ranger General you are hoping for, not me." Footsteps. The argument spilled into the corridor, and Alleria nearly collided with Sylvanans. She caught her sister's hand and held it, fingers tight. "I meant what I said about you." A final squeeze, then release. Alleria was gone, off to her room. Sylvanans stood rooted, a tremor moving through her that had nothing to do with the floor. Slowly, she turned to her mother. Larissa's back was rigid, a soldier's line. But when she faced her daughter, the tears she had washed away may have been gone, but it was evident that they had been there. Sylvanans closed her fingers around the warmth still left by Alleria's grasp. "It's me, Mother." Larissa drew herself taller, grief folding into steel. The answer in Sylvanans rose to meet it, clean and sure. "I may be your second choice, Mother, but you will see that I am not second best." Days gathered themselves around the new shape of things. The arguments cooled to embers, but they glowed beneath everything. There were bright notes too. Verissa stood straight backed as she was inducted into the Farstriders. Alleria chose her company. Larissa informed the ranks that Alleria would take a mission beyond their borders rather than the mantle at home. Sylvanans, in Alleria's stead, would train as Ranger General. The knowledge hurt Larissa, and perhaps hurt more because the room did not look surprised. Lirath, meanwhile, stepped into the title everyone had long expected, Royal Musician. The house filled with well-wishers and plans, wine uncorked from the palace cellars. A vintage Anasterian boasted had aged so long, the dust made everyone sneeze when it was brought up. Verith had laughed when he said it. Sylvanans checked the year and found she wasn't sure he'd exaggerated at all. The party hummed until twilight. Goodbyes to Alleria braided with congratulations. Verissa swung between damp-eyed sorrow and palpable relief to have the storming finished. Lirath beamed, training lists already spinning in his head. But Sylvanans, remembering the beach, wondered what lay under the shine. Larissa wore a sky-blue dress, simple and softening. It suited her more than armor ever did. And yet, Sylvanans knew only Lirath, who had never stood beneath her drill sergeant gaze, had been allowed the full warmth of that softness. Sylvanans was glad he had not been the one to walk that path. Lirath might think he wanted to be a Farstrider, but it was obvious he had been born to be something different. A balm to others, not a defender of them. She could not bear to have seen Lirath grow up like his sisters, tempered by the harshness of Larissa's forge of will. When the last guests drifted away, they gathered what mattered. Bottles of sun-touched reserve, Lirath's pipes and lute, a small drum, and followed the familiar path into Eversong. Firelight and night flowers stitched a circle around them. Lirath's voice rose to the sparkling stars in the night sky, along with the fragrant scent of wood smoke, as the three sisters stepped forward into the wild, flowing dances they had improvised since childhood. Hands readily clasped, smiles warmed faces, graceful bodies, honed from training and lives lived mostly under the sun and stars, moved with the grace of willows in an unspoken harmony. And at one point, Sylvanas saw Lirath rise, bow deeply to their mother, and extend a hand. Larissa smiled, and for a moment, Sylvanas had her first real glimpse of the girl Larissa must have been once, before time and duties took their toll. The two started dancing and turned on the soft grass, movements as known to their bodies as breath. For a heartbeat, Sylvanas felt the ache of a thought. Why did we stop coming here? Will we ever be whole again? And drove it away before it could bruise the night. Lirath caught her eye and grinned, pointing up. Look, Lady Moon! Even the stars have come to dance. She smiled back, seeing again the 4-year-old with dandelion fluff hair and a song for everything. When the music paused, Lirath stood with the bottle in one hand and pride in his voice. I am proud to be part of this remarkable family. My beloved wife is Ranger General, one who commands utmost respect from those she leads to victory after victory, and who has most certainly won my heart forever. The best battle I have ever fought, Larissa teased, eyes bright. The easiest, certainly. Lirath returned, and the circle laughed soft. He turned to Alleria. My eldest daughter is embarking on a journey that will bring the outside world to the gates of Silvermoon for the first time in perhaps too long. She is someone who remembers debts owed, who will forge new friendships while cherishing those she already has. I am proud you are blazing your own trail, my child. But I hope you will always know the way home. Alleria glanced at her mother, and for once, there was only peace in Larissa's face. My clever girl, my fierce girl, will follow in her mother's footsteps as the future Ranger General. Though you will no longer be at court quite so often, Sylvanas, do not think you have escaped me. I've come to rely on your instincts regarding strategy, if not your skill with diplomacy. Sylvanas laughed despite herself. Lirath winked and turned, warm as embers to the younger two. Verissa, our loving mediator. I do not think you know how much we rely on you to keep the peace. We are all, shall we say, strong-minded individuals. It's you who reminds us that we are also a family. I have little doubt you will turn this skill toward uniting many hearts in our kingdom. Verissa blushed, eyes bright with happy tears. And Lirath, what can I say? You have been such a blessing to us all. Not only was our home, and now the most honored and exclusive places in Quel'Thalas, uplifted daily by your music, but your spirit is as pure as your voice. True beauty cannot be purchased at the bazaar. It springs forth without fanfare in nature, and comes from those rare few who can grasp something the rest of us cannot. And it is they who bring it forth into the world. You are the youngest ever to be given the rank of royal musician. I cannot wait to see where your skill and kind heart take you as the years unfold. Lirath swallowed and managed, Thank you, Father. I hope I make you proud. They drank, and Larissa lifted her own cup. No one in my family, including me, cares much for formal garb, or lavish parties or jewelry, and I know that we have had our share of disagreements. Sylvanas' heart stuttered, Not tonight, please. But Larissa's voice gentled. But there was a moment, in the not-too-distant past, when I was happy for all of it, for formal gowns which meant we were at peace and could savor foolishness, for my family who were all together, and especially for my children, who looked so beautiful on that night. I remember the gowns my girls wore, the formal robes chosen by my son as he performed before the royal court. So your father and I commissioned something, so that Alleria always will remember that night, and her family. Lirath passed her a small pouch. She drew out a necklace, a chain with 3 stones that caught the fire. Ruby, sapphire, and emerald. 3 gems for my daughters, and for my son, her smile trembled. The artful chain that holds them together. I give you this, Alleria, to remind you of your family even when your heart takes you far from us. Alleria's answer was soft as ashfall. I will always remember you, no matter how distantly I might travel. The sweetness teetered toward solemn, and Lirath, knowing, rescued it by launching into a bawdy and hilarious tavern tune about a serving girl with 2 suitors, a hunter and a soldier, and everyone started laughing the minute they heard the first few notes. Even Larissa clapped the rhythm, calling the responses with the rest. Sylvanas drifted to the tree's edge with a goblet, Lirath ambling up beside her, the fire threw the family into bright fragments, hands linked, heads tipped back in laughter, feet finding old steps. It feels like more than Alleria leaving. she said, quiet. Her gaze slipped to Lirath. He used to be my little shadow, my little lord son. Now he plays for a king. Change is inevitable, my dear child. I know, but I'm not sure I'm ready for things to change. The world does not care what we want. It is up to us to change as well. The only other choice is to be left behind and forever bitter. He looked down at her fond. We're all feeling it, but you perhaps more than most. This night is the end of something. Tomorrow something else begins. He nodded toward the necklace, catching starlight hanging around Alleria's neck. That's why I said what I said, why we gave Alleria the necklace. We're old enough to know you must savor these moments because nothing lasts forever. And that is all right. Sylvanans huffed a laugh and tilted the goblet. It would be boring if everything stayed the same. Varys' answering chuckle was warm as coals. That's my girl. After Alleria's departure, Larissa's mercy hardened to method. Patrol rosters came down like verdicts, and Sylvanans found her name slotted among trainees. Some friends blinked at the demotion, she didn't. What surprised her was that it had taken this long. With Alleria refusing the mantle, she was no longer just another Farstrider, no matter how determined Larissa seemed to be about treating her as such. Lessons doubled as traps, praise was absent by design, and every misstep was meant to bruise. Sylvanans set her jaw and said nothing. She would not sound like a whining child. On the mustering green, rangers fletched and strung in the clean morning light. Sylvanans moved through them, asking after Anarith and Rendavan. Head shook. A hinge of foreboding closed inside her. I am coming with you, said Lorthamar. Your ranger general said I was to go alone, she reminded him. He only smiled, sly as a fox, and shouldered his bow. I never heard her say that. They slipped into Eversong's deeper shade. To the east, the Yamani had been too quiet. Threat and silence were twins. Varisa had yet to taste battle, Sylvanans only once. Patrols had become ceremony, tradition, deterrent, sometimes punishment. Do you think she'll test you as she did Alleria? Lorthamar asked as they moved. I thought I would be, but at this point I do not think that will happen. Then, because this was Lorthamar and he would hear truth anyway, it feels as if she doesn't think me worth enough to be formally presented to the Farstriders as their future Ranger General. Saying it aloud cost more than she'd expected. He dipped his head. The argument could be made that you have already been tapped to be Ranger General. Perhaps Larissa does not feel you need such a test. I think our current mission supports my original opinion. Her mouth crooked despite herself. Perhaps you were right. Larissa made no secret of her disappointment in Alleria's decision. It doesn't matter. Let her do what she feels she must. But if she wants me to step down, she will have to order me to do it. I will not do it on my own. I have no doubt of that. They reached an Amani marker, a tall slab, ceremonial mass grinning over heaps of old bone. Cross here and you were in enemy territory. Memory struck with the sharpness of winter light. These are the enemies, Sylvanans. They are cruel and show no mercy. We defeated them long ago, but like all vermin, they are hard to eradicate. If you see them, run, her mother told her. But I want to fight them. You will, and you will be ready. She blinked it away and saw him, Rendavan, cross-legged against the stone, head folded into his lap as if dozing, until you saw the angle of the neck. Words died, hands spoke. They moved back to back, bows half drawn, eyes slicing the brush for the next movement. Long breaths stretched to long minutes. Sylvanans flattened her right hand, fingers splayed. Stand down, hold fire. She circled the marker, scanning for wire, for smear, for taunt. You were both so new. You deserved a chance to at least taste life before it was taken from you. Signaling Lorthamar to sweep for the second scout, she stepped toward the piled skulls opposite, and stopped. Fresh bone lay on top, fresh blood dripping down the pile. Flies rose, settled, rose again. We failed you, she thought. The jungle cry split the air. They came fast, she was faster. Knock, draw, release. The throat shot turned a scream into a burble. A poison-tipped dart sang past her ear. She dropped, rolled, came up loosing again. Two bodies thumped behind her. Lorthamar was writing his own ledger. A shaman sprawled at his feet, another Amani laughing as it levered up a crooked spear, knocking Lorthamar's bow wide and drawing back for the kill. An arrow slammed through the troll's skull, the point punching out through the eye. It folded boneless into the grass. She wheeled, arrow up. "Don't shoot." The voice wasn't troll. "Drop the bow and come out where I can see you." A bow tumbled from the white-barked canopy, then a man, hands lifted, empty. "You are a human," she said. "Ah, what gave me away?" He was tall and burly under field-worn leather, quiver snugged to a scarred back. Mud splattered his boots, the cloak hem bore old dark stains. His face looked like it had met too many fists and healed without a healer's hand. Sylvanas didn't lower her weapon. "Lorthamar, did we get them all?" "It seems so," he said. "It would appear I am in your debt, human." The stranger shifted. "It was nothing. Just lucky I was there." "Lucky, yes, but not a coincidence. Were you spying on us?" asked Sylvanas. He sighed. "Can I lower my hands?" "Not yet. I asked you a question." "Yes, I was spying. On them." He flicked a nod toward the bodies. "I was here to observe troll behavior and report back. Lordaeron wanted current information on them because we suspect they might be cooperating with the Horde. Or, at the very least, allowing a Horde presence here. That is the message I was bringing your king when the troll ambush on you two Farstriders so rudely interrupted my travels. I'm Nathanos Maris, by the way. I am the woman with an arrow pointed at your heart. That did not escape my notice." Their eyes held. She let the bowstring relax inch by inch. The clearing told the rest. 6 Amani wore Farstrider shafts. 3 more lay with green and brown fletching. He'd saved Lorthamar and dropped 2 besides. "Help us bring our friends back, then I'll take you to the king." Nathanos and Lorthamar lifted the fallen with careful hands. Sylvanas walked ahead, senses combing the trails for fresh threat. "We failed them. We needed to vary the routes and time. Our scout's arrival was like clockwork." At the city, the cold stones took their comrades. Sylvanas squared herself. "I will take the human to the court. He can deliver his message to the king, and I will speak with the Ranger General about this. Stay here. Lorthamar, tend them well." Lorthamar nodded. Nathanos fell in behind as she led the human through Silvermoon's gaze. Children pointed, whispers followed. He took it all in, the tomes, the statuary, the paintings held by spells against the centuries. "Silvermoon is quite an impressive city," Sylvanas said. "Not the word I was thinking of, but yes, that works too." Her mouth almost twitched. Dirty, blunt, and unawed. He was at the very least not court. They stepped into the council chamber. Anasterian, Belliver, Romoth, Larissa, Varith, heads bent over a map, looked up as one. "Your Majesty, Magisters, Ranger General, and Chief Advisor. This is Nathanos Maris, a ranger captain from Lordaeron." He bowed with unexpected grace. "He was sent to observe the activities of the Amani, as there is growing concern about a possible threat from the Horde. You should also know that he saved Lorthamar's life, and fought with us against the troll ambush." Questions cut the air. "Anarith? Rendavan?" Sylvanas shook her head. Anasterian's expression went grave. "The Farstriders sacrifice much to keep the kingdom safe. Sometimes everything. Quothalas will remember," he said. Then to Nathanos. "We were not told to expect you, Ranger Maris. We would have escorted you properly." Nathanos tapped the pouch at his side. "With due respect, Your Majesty, concern regarding the visibility of such an escort was precisely why you were not alerted. I bring information, and I was ordered to gather more as I made my way to Silvermoon." He patted the leather. "I have here all the information we humans have gathered on Amani activity, which we share in good faith. I also bring a warning. The Horde's activity appears to be increasing. There's a very real concern that they are attempting to recruit the Amani, which would place your kingdom in immediate jeopardy." Sylvanas angled a thought into the opening. "That might explain their boldness in killing our scouts. They've been quiet for some time, and this looks like they are trying to goad us into rash action." Larissa's look cut, sharp as a blade. A tactician never leaps to a conclusion before gathering the facts. Sylvanas' retort touched her tongue. Anasterian lifted a palm, the old eyes flashing.
We will know more once we have read the missives. Ranger Maris, you and the information you bear are welcome here, and we thank you for the service you have performed for the Quel'Dari. Please rest and take some refreshment. You are free to explore Silvermoon, as long as one of our Firestriders accompanies you. Sylvanans stepped forward before the moment cooled. Given the current situation, I feel it would be useful to learn more about how Lordaeron trained its rangers. Larissa's glare darkened. The king nodded. They bowed and withdrew. Sylvanans caught the grubby ranger by the arm and steered him out. In the sunlight, he let his humor loose. I know I'm irresistible, but this is a bit sudden, don't you think? My mistake. I'll find another Firestrider to show you around. I didn't say that, but you might let go of my arm. Sylvanans realized she'd kept a fighter's grip since the chamber. I would apologize, but you lack the manners to appreciate it. He grinned. I am many things, and unmannered is certainly one of them. I rescued one of your Farstriders. You rescued me from boredom. Let's call it even. I'll find an inn and enjoy your no doubt excellent wine until I'm summoned. She arched a brow. You are the first human I've met who wasn't a courier, and I would like to know what passes for archery among your military. I believe I'll surprise you. They crossed a square where a fountain threw thin fans of water into the light. Nathanos eyed it deadpan. Is that the famous Sunwell? I thought it would be much more impressive. It looks like a place you toss coins into rather than a legendary font of magic. How is it possible a rustic bumpkin like you seemed worthy to be a spy? The Sunwell isn't even located. His eyes held a telltale twinkle. She huffed, smoothed it to exasperation. The Sunwell is located on the Isle of Quel'Danos, Nathanos continued as if he led the tour. The ancestor of the very king I chatted with managed to steal a vial of water from the Well of Eternity on his way out of the Door of Exile. Funny how stealing something can make you king, if the item in question is good enough. And yet, look what it has done. We enjoy near perfect health. We have impenetrable magical borders that have protected our land for millennia. It made you shorter than the night elves you're descended from. Sylvanans stopped in her tracks. She was annoyed, but much more amused, though she did not let him see that. Be silent or I will silence you myself. And how would you manage that? Her palm covered her mouth before he could finish. He lifted his hands in mock surrender and she let him go. At the range, the target stood like pale moons against the green. You may use my bow and quiver if you wish. He shook his head. No thanks. I know this one best. An archer should be able to shoot true with any bow or arrow, and the ones crafted in Quel'Thalas are exquisite. The prettiest bow and arrows with the most brightly colored feathers will not make a bad archer a good one. She tilted her head. Are you telling me you're a bad archer? You know, he began. It's said in Lordaeron that high elves are the finest archers in the world. Oh, we are. Elves were built for it. Light of step, great eyesight, reflexes that could dodge a flash of lightning. It is also said in Lordaeron that they are the most stuck-up, arrogant, self-centered, and vain people in the world. Both descriptions are true. Do you want to try our weapons? I already said no. I thought you elves would have exceptional hearing, what with your extremely long ears. She tucked her hair behind one of the offending points. Don't be jealous, I'm sure yours are fine for a human. He sighed. My tiny ears have heard you, my lady. I am ready to accept your challenge using my clumsy, badly strung bow and my pathetic arrows. She let the smile come. I'm pleased that you understand the situation so clearly, and caught the smile he tried to hide. They shot until the air smelled of resin and cord. Nathanos surprised her, tight groupings, a smooth draw, a calm that didn't break under distance. She returned in kind. Once her shaft split his, costing him an arrow and earning a glance that was half a scowl, half respect. The world narrowed to fletching, breath, and the soft thock of truth finding its mark. Between volleys he asked, Do your people need you back immediately? She looked downrange, then smiled without quite meaning to. If they do, they'll send for me. Some months later, Sylvanans ran for home, breath burning. Thoughts arrow fast. If she moved quickly enough, maybe she could outrun the mistake. At the ramp, she nearly collided with her sister. Panting, she managed, Verisa, has Lirath arrived yet? Verisa's look was cool enough to frost glass. Yes, he was here. The four of us enjoyed a lovely meal to celebrate. I made him a leather scroll case to carry his songs in. Sylvanas cursed herself silently. Did he say anything? Where he might be going? No. Nothing offered, nothing softened. How could she have forgotten her brother's name day, his day, when the first sight of him was etched into her soul? She sprinted to the stables, flung a saddle on a dragonhawk, and rose over Eversong's gilded canopy toward Silvermoon. Each beat of the creature's wings churned her guilt. There were reasons, duties, threats, 10,000 distractions. But they thinned to excuses at that height. On the days that should have been Lirath alone, something always stole the stage. In the artist's quarter, she heard him before she saw him. A flute, soft and solitary, the melody a clean wound. She paused, knocked, the music cut off. Yes? He called. Lirath, it's me. Please open the door. Footfalls. The latch turned, he stood there. Weariness and sadness, plain as sun on water. Her heart gave. I'm so sorry. Can we talk? We're talking now. Not here. Outside. He stared at the floor, sighed. Very well. They couldn't cross the corridor without bow and murmur, nod and smile. Silvermoon loved its courtesies. At last they reached the air. For a moment he seemed unrecognizable to her. Lips pressed thin in anger, a frown creasing his forehead, hair a cascade of liquid gold. Who was this stranger? Where was her brother? The laughing child, the gentle boy? It burst out of her. Your hair is so long. What? I just hadn't noticed. His temper broke its banks. You haven't noticed because you haven't seen me in well over a fortnight. The words cracked like a whip, snapping her into the present. He pressed on, relentless. You live at home. I live here. You are all welcome to come visit me. Used to visit me often, but you've stopped, Sylvanans. Even on my name day, and I know exactly why. Shame stung. She did avoid the city now, after that miserable remembrance. It was easier to hunt than to smile for advisors and lords. Easier to trade barbs with Nathanos on a forest trail than to make conversation in silk. Still, you're right. I have avoided coming into Silvermoon. That doesn't mean I don't want to see you. His voice gentle despite himself, that familiar music threading through it. I'd like to believe that. But Mother and Father both remembered, and they are kept so busy they barely have time to breathe. She almost lied. Training, trolls, anything, but the truth sat heavy. The first one without Alleria, and me, she thought. You're starting to forget me. No, I could never forget you, Lirath. He spread his arms helpless, attempted a smile that didn't hold. Yet here we are. You've left me behind, Sylvanans. You've all left me behind. I barely see you. Verisa? Today was the first time I've seen her in months. She's seldom home when I come, and she's yet to come see me. Father is the only one I see regularly, and even he has lost his smile of late. The snap came before she could leash it. I'm a Farstrider. Do you think I would not have to devote time to the dangers that threaten our people? And don't you understand how hard Mother is on me? You know how hard she drove our sister, and trust me, baby brother, whatever she gave Alleria, she has doubled with me. Because I'm not the one she wanted. She resents that I am here and Alleria is not, Sylvanans thought to herself. He didn't let it pass. Don't blame Mother for your choices. The cold of it cut, clean and deep. Oh, for Verisa's calming voice. But there was only the two of them, and the brittle space between. There was only she and Lirath, whom she loved more than anything in the world, and this anger and defensiveness between them. She wanted to tell him everything she was feeling and had felt. That the day he was born, her life had changed so profoundly, that she made him a promise to keep him safe, that she would fight 1,000 trolls single-handedly rather than see any harm come to him, that there was no one she loves more. The words wouldn't come. Rather than fail in front of him, she turned away. After the fight with Lirath, she went to try to find her father, but he was busy and couldn't be disturbed right now. So she found a fountain in the slow spill of water, and tried to think what her father would say. She could almost hear him. So, try again. When you are in the wrong, Sylvanus, excuses do not make your actions right. They make them understandable, and perhaps forgivable if they are true. And then gentler. Sometimes, my daughter, it is better to be kind than right. Not just because it itself is the decent thing to do, but because one day you may be grateful for some kindness from others in return. Yes, the quarrel had been foolish. Everyone was busy, and yet everyone had made time for Lirath except her. She would give him space and then try again. For now, she had to get home as to be ready when Larissa and Varith went to the Alliance to discuss the trolls, and perhaps the Horde. Senior Farstriders were chosen to travel with the Ranger General and Chief Advisor. Sylvanus at last left in charge, the first real measure of her mother's trust since Alleria left. Her thoughts strayed, unwillingly, to Nathanos, friendship, flirtation, and to the curiosity he'd sparked in her about human cities. Another day. The gray hour found them all at the gate. Varisa and Sylvanus waited. Lirath arrived, and she kept her eyes on the cobbles. "How long will you be gone?" Lirath asked his father. "Not long, I hope, but of course we will stay as long as need be." "Do you think you will get a chance to see Alleria?" Varisa asked, hope bright in her voice. "Perhaps. She may be out in the field, though. I will tell her you asked about her." Varith's gaze gathered them in. "An Asterian is grateful for this family's service, and has asked me to inform you that if you have need of anything in our absence, you have but to ask the court. Do not worry, father. We will be fine on our own, though we will miss you." Sylvanus let him pull her close, his unshaven cheek rasping warmly against hers. Sylvanus asked if he planned to grow a beard. He rubbed his stubble theatrically. I had not planned to, but now that you mention..." "Your face is too handsome to hide behind a beard," Varisa decreed. "I do not know. Perhaps he should conceal his face. He is so handsome he might intimidate the humans," Sylvanus added. Larissa cut in. "No, he is not growing a beard. He will not present himself to the humans and speak for an Asterian looking scraggly and unkempt like your human pet." Heat rose under Sylvanus' skin. Her human pet? Hardly. Varith rescued the moment with a grin. "If anyone is going to intimidate the humans, it will be you, my fierce wife." Larissa's mouth softened just enough. They mounted, final instructions, final embraces. "Varisa, listen to Sylvanus. If she gives you a direct order, she's more than your sister now. She's your commanding officer. And Lirath?" Larissa's voice gentled as it always did for the youngest. She cupped his cheek. "We are all so proud of you. I cannot wait to hear what new compositions you have for us to listen to." He brightened impish. "I'm composing a limerick about the orcs. So many things rhyme with green." Laughter chased the chill. Varith kissed Varissa's hair, embraced the son now taller than he, then turned to Sylvanus and lowered his voice. "This is your chance. Your mother is hard to impress, but if anyone can do it, you can. Believe in yourself, my dear girl, as I have always believed in you." His kiss on her brow was as warm as hearthlight. They rode out, silhouettes dwindling along the Thalassian way. "I miss them already," Varisa murmured, leaning into Lirath. "Me too." His reply was soft, melancholy. Silence settled. The morning wind found the seams of their cloaks. Sylvanus searched for something to bridge the space. "Mean." "What?" "Mean. It rhymes with green." His face eased. A small smile unknotted his mouth. "So it does." He kept one arm around Varisa and opened the other. She stepped into it without a word, resting her head against his shoulder until the tightness loosened in her chest. Across that quiet, her words returned to her, clear as the first time she'd spoken it. "I could never forget you, my little lord son." This was not the first time the Windrunner children had been left without their parents, but it was the first time Alleria was absent, and Sylvanus found herself in charge. To her surprise, it was not as suffocating as she had feared. Without Larissa's constant presence, her mother's sharp discipline echoing behind every step, Sylvanus discovered a new rhythm. She did not shirk her duties. She still rose at the same early hour, still drilled herself and her rangers with the same precision. But there was a lightness to her days. She had never realized how tightly she had bound herself to her mother's expectations, how much of her discipline was tethered to that stern gaze. But Nathanos Maris, the oft-scowling, sharp-witted, irreverent human, interested her greatly. For the first time in many years, Sylvanus let herself play. One golden afternoon, she brought him along one of her favorite paths, winding toward the sanctum of the sun. She loved to watch its turning orbs, glittering representations of the stars, and to wander the little-known trail that climbed behind it towards Sungray's Peak. The ascent was gentle at first, but the last stretch demanded effort. Nathanos made no complaint, though he collapsed beneath an ancient tree when they reached the summit. "So, what's my reward?" he asked, taking a long swig from his water skin and sprawling with his hands behind his head. Sylvanans only smiled and lifted her arm to the horizon. The view spoke for itself. From this height, the world stretched wide. The sanctum of the sun gleamed to the south, Tranquillium lay in shadow to the northwest, and Windrunner's spire rose proud against the dying light. A lake lay still and unbroken below, the sky aflame with sunset. "I like being up here alone, with nobody needing or wanting anything from me. You're the first person I've taken here." That admission caught Nathanos off guard. His lips parted, but no clever retort came. He only looked at her, wordless. Sylvanans drew her knees to her chest, letting the breeze tug at her hair, watching as the world hushed itself beneath the veil of dusk. For once, she let herself rest above it all, above duties, above doubts, above the weight of leading the Farstriders. "Why me? You could have your pick of anyone, and they would be guaranteed to be better company than me." Sylvanans smiled, her gaze lifting toward the sanctum, to the land she fought for, to the city she protected. "Look what surrounds us. Here in Silvermoon, everywhere. Everything you see is beautiful. All our statues are polished. All our music is elegant. All our weapons are bright and gleaming and lovely. Everyone has eyes you can get lost in, regal noses, flawless skin. It's all so very pretty." She meant every word. She loved her people dearly, but she also knew the arrogance that wove itself through their lives like a subtle poison. She had always hated bullies, always found joy in humbling those who lorded themselves over others. She would gladly give herself for her kin, but she was not blind to their flaws. "But the world isn't perfect, Nathanos, and the only people who know that, who truly understand that, are the ones who have to go out and deal with that world. It's not pretty when a troll is snarling a handspan from your face, or you've only wounded a spring pond that's about to rip your belly to bloody shreds." The image pulled her mind back to that terrible day she had saved Alleria from the spring pond named Mauler. She could still feel the whistle of her arrow, the brush with death. "I think this is what sets the Farstriders apart more than anything else, because our eyes are truly open. Everyone else lives in their soft and safe version of the world. Those we protect them not just from danger, we protect them from the true face of this world." Sighing, she shifted onto her side, propped on an elbow, and reached out to brush his unruly hair from his brow. "To me, beauty is commonplace, perfection is dull. And, Nathanos Maris, you are the ugliest and least dull person I have ever met. And that is why I like you." Her face hovered close to his, her voice low. Nathanos' rough hands cupped her cheek. Her heart thudded wildly beneath his touch. "My lady, you are too smart to be so foolish." She smiled at that, remembering the first words she had ever spoken to him. "Be silent, or I will silence you myself." His eyes lit in recognition. "And how would you manage that?" He never finished. Sylvanans pressed her lips to his, one hand sliding behind her head, the other caught at her waist. He held her fiercely, as if to say he would never, ever let her go. Sometime later, Sylvanans and Verisa were at the retreat, crouched over a freshly skinned bear pelt. Blood spattered the grass around them, the smell of iron sharp in the air. They worked in silence, their hands steady when the beat of hooves broke the stillness. A courier rode hard into the clearing, drawing up short at the sight of the carnage laid out before him. His eyes widened, but he remembered his task and blurted, "Lady Verisa, Lady Sylvanans, you are ordered to report to His Majesty the King at once." The sisters shared a quick glance, confusion flickering across their faces. "Something you did?" Verisa asked. Her voice was not accusing, simply practical. Given Sylvanans' history, it was a fair question. Sylvanans only shook her head, calm in her denial. Oddly enough, no. She was called to court from time to time, but something about this summons felt different. Urgent, heavy. In her gut, she already knew what it meant, though she would not let herself name it. Turning back to the courier, she asked, "Is this a Farstrider matter? I regret that I have not been informed about the reason for the summons, only that I am to bring the two of you as quickly as possible." The sisters obeyed. They arrived at the palace and were ushered into the waiting room. Neither took the seats offered. Verisa leaned against the wall, fidgeting with the dagger at her hip as though she could cut straight through the mystery if given the chance. Sylvanas could not be still. She paced the length of the chamber, mind racing through possibilities, though every path led her back to the same dreadful conclusion. A terrible feeling settled deep in her stomach. At last, the doors opened. King Anasterion entered, his presence as commanding as ever. But the Windrunner sisters' eyes were not on him. They were fixed on the figure who walked at his side. Lirath. In that instant, Sylvanas knew. It was not a Farstrider matter. It was a family matter. "It can't be that, it's something else," she begged silently, clinging to the last shred of denial. The king gestured for them all to sit. Sylvanas obeyed stiffly, every muscle tense. She wanted to bolt from the chamber to avoid the words she knew were coming. "I have received a report," Anasterion began. His voice was solemn, heavy with shared grief. "Know that my own heart is heavy with grief, that I must inform you that your parents and all who accompanied them are dead." The words did not surprise her. She had known deep down what this summons meant, but still they shattered her. Hearing them aloud was like glass driven into her chest. Then came a voice that pierced through her haze of pain. "Both?" That single word from Lirath's lips carried more anguish than anything Sylvanas had ever heard. The crack in his voice left a gaping wound in her chest. "Tragically, yes," said Anasterion, his tone grave. "It is a great loss not only to you, the children they were so proud of, but to everyone in this kingdom. They were much admired and in many cases beloved by all who knew them." Sylvanas could scarcely believe it. Both gone in one stroke. Her fiery, indomitable mother, her gentle, wise father. A rock dragged under by the tide, gone without warning. Elves lived long lives. She had imagined decades, even centuries, yet to share with them. The loss was too sudden, too cruel. She felt frozen. Moments ago, she had been taut with dread, pacing like a caged animal. Now she was ice, unable to move, unable to even weep. Beside her, Verisa's skin was pale as snow, her breath shallow. Lirath stared at the floor, white as parchment, his silence a scream. Anasterion's word blurred into meaningless sound, and Sylvanas had to force herself to breathe. "Focus, Sylvanas, you have to be strong right now." She drew a long, ragged breath and willed herself to listen. They were ambushed while making camp for the evening, but presently we are not yet certain by whom. Sylvanas couldn't believe what she was hearing. Ambushed? No, not Larissa. Not while father was under her watch. Her mother would have never let her guard down. Larissa Windrunner was vigilance embodied. Sylvanas couldn't believe what she was hearing. "This information is wrong. My mother would never allow her party to be taken by surprise. This is Larissa Windrunner." But Anasterion only shook his head, sorrow weighing his features. "I share your disbelief. Never would I have thought. Inconceivable as it seems, all evidence, little though there was, points to this being the truth." Something inside Sylvanas shifted. If her mother was truly gone, then she herself bore the mantle. She was Ranger General now. She had to act as such. Her voice cooled, shedding grief for steel. "Your Majesty, when you say little evidence, what do you mean precisely?" "Unfortunately," said the king, "by the time the bodies were discovered, scavengers had already done their work." "Then you cannot be certain it was them," Verisa pressed, her voice strained. But Anasterion's answer cut away even the last fragile hope. "Lady Verisa, the bodies were discovered by the Windrunner household. Everyone in the party has been accounted for." Sylvanas' heart clenched. No mistake, no misidentification. The truth stood unyielding before them. Anasterion continued, voice heavy yet firm. "Everyone in the party has been accounted for. The assailants took anything of value, including secret information meant for the Alliance leaders. Then this is no simple robbery." Sylvanas' tone was sharpened now, steady as a drawn bow. The mantle of duty settled upon her shoulders with a weight that nearly broke her, but she forced herself to bear it. Her siblings turned toward her, finding in her composure the lifeline they needed. She felt fierce pride in them, especially for Lirath, who had never walked as close to death as she and Verisa had, and yet did not collapse beneath the weight of grief. "No, it's not," Anasterian said gravely. "I suspect the work of our old friends, the Amani. No doubt they would relish access to any information about our military movements." Sylvanus' heart stung at the name. Trolls. Always trolls. Yet even as Anasterian spoke, she could not quiet the scream inside her head. "Not my mother. Larissa Windrunner does not fall to such creatures, not like this." The king added, "I have sent a messenger to the eldest Windrunner, but she will be difficult to track. Still, she must be notified as soon as possible." The eldest Windrunner. Alleria was now, wasn't she? They're gone. They're both gone. The thought echoed inside Sylvanus. She drew in a slow, shuddering breath and steadied her voice. "We must find out exactly what happened. I will go to the site." "Others are there already, including Theron," Anasterian replied. Her blood boiled at that. "But they aren't me." Every fiber of her wanted to cry it out loud. "I am Ranger General now. They were my parents, my Farstriders. No one will search as I would. No one will bleed for the truth as I will." Anasterian's eyes lingered on her, measuring her. At last he said, "Lorthamar has assured me that he will scour the area. He will be relentless and exhaustive in his investigation. Once that is done, their remains will be brought home with all the reverence they are due. I understand your desire for their deaths to have been due to something strange and unfamiliar, a great threat like the Dark Horde, not at the hands of simple trolls. But when we have had enemies at our door for millennia, it is not difficult to know who to blame. Let others handle this particularly cruel aspect of the tragedy now. Much of leadership is understanding when to delegate. Larissa and Vareth Windrunner will be brought home as soon as possible, with every care and respect given to them. You know this." She did know it, and yet she also knew she could not remain idle in Silvermoon, stewing in grief until it hollowed her out. Duty and blood both called her. "I will not shy away from my first duty as Ranger General, to discover who slew 2 vital court members and several Farstriders in such a cowardly fashion. My king, I ask you, please, let me lead this investigation. We 3 are Windrunners, and we will not shirk our duties, not even the painful ones." She thought of her father then, not just his wise counsel, but his warning, that the Sunstrider court was more dangerous than any wilderness. Wild animals were driven by simple things, hunger or dominance, trolls by hatred, pure and simple. The predators in the Sunstrider court were far worse. Greed, ego, fear, and pride drove them, and those were hungers that could never be sated. If she faltered now, if she showed weakness, the jackals would close in. Anasterian considered her for a long moment, then said, "Against my better judgment, I will grant your request. The crown appreciates your devotion, but take care, Ranger General, that your desire for justice does not blind you to what truths you uncover." He rose and the Windrunner children followed. "Once again, I am truly sorry for your loss. Ranger General, you will depart on the morrow." "My liege, with your permission, I will depart within the hour." "Sister, it can wait," Verisa said softly, pleading with her eyes. "No. Justice? Punishment cannot wait, sister." It was plain Anasterian disapproved, but he inclined his head nonetheless. "As you wish. Make your farewells here then, and meet me in the council chamber when you are ready. You will be given a full debriefing. Take your time." The door closed, leaving only the 3 siblings. Verisa's face crumpled at last. Lirath blinked as if waking from a dream, and then his voice broke with raw desperation. "Lady Moon, don't leave. Not yet. Please." It was the first time he had begged for anything. Sylvanus' heart cracked anew. "You know I must," she said, voice tight with restrained grief. She wanted nothing more than to gather them both into her arms, to weep as a sister, not stand as a general. But she could not. We are Windrunners. We endure. Verisa, ever the peacekeeper, touched his arm. "We know. People will look to us as an example. They will be frightened and worried. We must comfort them by being strong." Sylvanus loved her fiercely in that moment. "I know. I'm just not ready to be alone yet," Lirath whispered. "You won't be. Verisa said quickly, giving him the embrace Sylvanus could not. But duty pressed forward. Sylvanus' voice was steady when she said, Verisa, most of the other high-ranking Farstriders were with our parents. The rest are likely at the murder site investigating. I will need you to represent the family properly among their number here in Silvermoon till I return. Verisa's face fell, but she did not argue. Lirath bit his lips, silent, though his eyes brimmed with hurt. With that order, Verisa then would not be with him, but as much as it hurt, they understood. Sylvanus looked at him last, her words softer, trembling at the edges. Write them a lament, Lirath. He stared at her. I cannot. Yes, you can. It would mean so much to them and to us. To me. I will know that someone is turning such terrible pain into beauty, and that will give me strength. You are the only one who can do them justice. Before leaving to go to the king, she saw Lirath and Verisa hand in hand, as they had been in childhood when the world was gentler. Then Sylvanus turned and walked away, to the king, and then to Nathanos. Telling Nathanos was harder than she thought it would be. Even as she spoke the words, she found herself retreating behind formality, refusing to say mother or father. Instead, they became the Ranger General and the Chief Advisor. Titles that set a wall between her and the grief clawing its way up her throat. But Nathanos was able to put the pieces together, although he said nothing. She suspected Horde involvement, her instincts told her so, and her instincts rarely lied. Nathanos had grown up in these borderlands, had studied their ways of war. He might see what her Farstriders missed. That was why she wanted him there, flying with her into Eastweald, what humans would one day call the Plaguelands, a few miles south of Alliance's Northwatch Tower. 2 Dragonhawks cut through the gray sky. Sylvanus' mind whirled faster than their wing beats, thoughts crashing over one another, 1,000 possibilities, questions, and strategies. She forced herself to sift through them, pushing some to the back of her mind, clinging to what she could act upon now. Duty, always duty. It was the body she saw first, covered in cloth, laid out in the grass like fallen effigies. A part of her longed to turn away, but she knew the truth. If she wanted the full picture, she would have to look. Farstriders moved about the site, grim and familiar. Lorthamar, steady as stone, Haldoran, quiet and watchful, and hunters from the Quelithian Lodge led by the formidable Ranger Lord Renthar Hawkspear. A stranger was there as well, lean and stiff, dressed in royal clothing. He did not belong to the Fellowship of Grief or the work of the hunt. He was the king's eyes. She remembered Anastarian's anxiousness at her insistence to investigate. Compassion, yes, but there had been something else too. Hesitation? Perhaps mistrust. The envoy's presence was the proof. Landing, she did not so much as glance at him. He is here to observe, not to help. Let him observe. Report. Assume I've been told nothing. What are your thoughts? She said curtly to Lorthamar. But his eyes slid, however briefly, toward Nathanos. Sylvanus cut him off sharply. The Eastweald is his home, and if this is Horde activity, he would know that better than us. Lorthamar inclined his head, then relayed the findings. 2 days ago, one of the white horses ridden by Larissa and Vareth had shown up at the spire. It was unharmed but agitated, and the household feared the worst. And they had been correct. Because scavengers had fed on the corpses, it was not easy to ascertain time of death. But the Farstriders were used to even the subtlest clues of decay, and placed the time at no more than a week, probably only 3 or 4 days. She followed as he led her across the scene. Markers dotted the earth, bloodstains, disturbed soil, broken shafts of wood, silent witnesses to violence. She spoke as she surveyed them. The Mossflayer numbers are not what they once were. Such an audacious attack is more likely to have come from the Amani. But why would they travel so far from Quel'Thalas? Renthar Hawkspear answered, his voice as solid as the cut of his frame, taller than most, muscled and sharp-featured, his black hair drawn into a warrior's knot. He commanded the space easily as he had always done. Ranger General, I wish you were here on other business. So do we all, she replied grimly. Renthar continued, and yes, but the prize practically walked right past them as the group headed toward the gate. It would be terrible strategy to follow an attack so far away. And whatever they may be, the Amani do understand strategy. Sylvanas shook her head. No, Renthart, something is not adding up. She stepped toward a covered body, expecting to find one of her senior rangers. Instead, when she drew back the cloth, her breath caught. Larissa Windrunner's face was pale, her body stiff. Sylvanas felt if she had been struck, but then felt an emotion other than grief welling up inside her. Pride. Her mother had died doing what she had vowed to do, defending others, trying to keep her people, her family, safe. She died the hero she had been in life, even if this time her sacrifice seemed to be in vain. Looking at her mother's face, Sylvanas thought to herself, I won't let it be. You'd want me to find who did this. I will. I promise. But she forced her mind back to the evidence. So many arrows. She tugged one free, testing the poison tip. Troll make. Could Anasterion have been right? And then she saw it. 2 wounds where arrows had been pulled out, not cut, deliberately removed. The Ranger General would never simply pull out an arrow, certainly not in the heat of battle. Someone wanted their arrows back. Arrows could be retrieved, yes, but only when time allowed. Not here, not now. Why some and not all? Lorthamar's face darkened. Because they only wanted us to notice some, but not the others. Halloran joined them, his silence saying more than words. All 3 and Nathanos too understood the implication. They just needed proof. Sylvanas bent low beside Larissa once more. Thank you, Mother. I will find them. I will protect our people from them. You may rest with ease. Your duty is done. Her gaze fell on the quiver pinned beneath the body. 3 arrows remained. She bit her lip, then drew them free, admiring the brown and gold fletching, the colors of the Windrunners and the Farstriders both. She slipped them into her own quiver. The legacy was hers now. She rose, voice hard again with command. Lorthamar and Haldoran would remain to search for signs, for weapon cuts too large to be trolls, for wounds made by unfamiliar steel. She and Nathanos would hunt southward, riding one dragonhawk together. As they scouted the Eastweald, the silence stretched taut between them until Nathanos broke it. I respect the Farstriders, but I do not think they looked past the immediate area for clues. After a time, Sylvanas answered, her voice low and edged. It was the Horde, wasn't it? I think so, yes. No one removes only a few arrows. They removed the ones that would betray them, orcish arrows. They left the troll ones to trick us into thinking the trolls acted alone. The words rang like a vow. Nathanos heard it too, and knew those responsible would pay. They cleaned their tracks well, and the rain was their friend, he said. I am hoping they grew careless farther south. They found only footprints blurred by rain, perhaps trolls, perhaps not. No discarded weapons, no banners, no proof, nothing that could stand in a king's hall. Yet to Sylvanas, the truth was already clear. Any Farstrider, or indeed anyone with experience with arrows at all, knew better than to remove one on the battlefield. The resulting blood loss would be more dangerous than the arrow itself. If possible, the arrow would be cut in half and removed in 2 pieces to avoid pulling the barbs through the flesh. Yes, Nathanos agreed grimly. Horde arrows are fletched differently, and they are slightly larger. They are not fools, these orcs, Sylvanas said, her tone like steel. They collaborated with the trolls, as was feared. The orcs waited until the group was far enough from any defense, then attacked while the trolls closed in behind. The king was right about that. It was an ambush. You would not have saved them, Nathanos said softly. We will never know. I could have tried, she said, eyes closing briefly against the pain. I'm glad you did not. They returned with heavy hearts and no further proof. The envoy would hear her say it was trolls. The king would believe what he wished, but she knew better. When Lorthamar asked, How should we address you now, Ranger General, Ranger Lord? The question struck harder than a blade. I am neither. For now you may call me Sylvanas. I must pay my respects to the fallen. Then please arrange the bodies to be brought home with all due care, as they deserve. It shall be done, Haldoran said quietly. She walked among the dead, each covered form a reminder of how costly the battle had been. They were veterans, every one of them. It would have taken a tide of enemies to cut them down. She noted again the pulled arrows, the heavy wounds no troll could make. Enough to know the truth, never enough to prove it. At last she came to her father. He was no ranger, no soldier. He should have lived to grow old with books and wine, to meet grandchildren not yet born. She wasn't ready to let him go. She would have lost not only her fiery, exacting, heroic mother, but her gentle, wise, humorous father, who was in his own way as strong as his wife. Before she knew it, she had dropped to her knees beside him, tears burned in her eyes, but she refused to let them fall. She tried and failed to control the shaking of her hand as she pulled back the cloth and looked at the beloved face, whose skin was now as white as his hair. She noted that he had shaved the stubble they had teased him about the last time she had seen him. Strange, what odd and seemingly trivial details the mind clung to. Her whisper trembled. "You always loved me, no matter what I did. Your punishments were reasoned and fair. And you taught me to think. Mother's duty to the crown always put her in danger. I never thought yours would. I will fight for both of you. For the Quel'Thalas you always loved." When she rose again, her grief was carved into something harder. "I will take word to the king myself, and I will stop by Windrunner's spire on the way to thank them and offer what comfort I can." At the spire she tried as best she could to comfort the household. At that moment, Talvis, the head horse groomer, came running. "My lady, 'tis a miracle!" Her heart jolted. Such words in this darkness? But he meant Arrowflight, Larissa's steed, safely home. And then another. "Nay, my lady, her too, yes, but come see." In the stables a white horse waited, her father's Parley. Her joy faltered when she saw blood from his flank. "He will be fine," Talvis rushed to assure her. "No poison. The arrow's been removed with all care. We're cleaning the wound." She dug into her satchel, finding a pouch of wound wood to ease the stallion's pain. Slowly she approached, and Parley lowered his head to her hand, trembling easing as he recognized her touch. Somehow both steeds had found their way home, though their masters had not. As she stroked Parley's muzzle, memory rose sharp and bright. Her father behind her on this very horse, his warmth against her back. The sun gilding the day. One more ride, one more laugh, one more moment. It's too much to ask. Nathanos' voice broke the spell. "Sylvanans." She turned and froze. He held an arrow in his hand. "Is it?" "Yes, it's a horde arrow." She could not contain her joy. She threw her arms around Parley's neck, pressing her cheek to his warmth as tears finally came. "Thank you, Father. You've given me one final gift. I will keep my promise." She would need courage to challenge the king. He could strip her command, silence her voice. But she had her proof. She had her purpose. Her cheek pressed against the stallion's neck. She could almost hear her father's voice one final time. "Believe in yourself, my dear girl, as I have always believed in you." Thank you for checking this out. I hope to see you in the next one. Please take care of yourself.